This story is from the perspective of an 18-year-old girl. This happened about 4 months ago, a little after I started dating my boyfriend. It was about 10 to 11 p.m. I am 18 and my boyfriend is 19. We were driving along a long road. It could have been some sort of highway, but there was only one other person and it was only one lane. And I am being very vigilant because a deer can go surprise. I want to wreck your car. At some point, when I am a bit more relaxed, we catch up to the car in front of us and realize the guy is going extremely fast and swerving. I was already on the phone with 911 when the guy just swerved all the way to the left and took down a fucking street sign and got back on the road like nothing happened. He noticed that we kept getting close enough so I could read his license plate, apparently, and continuously tried to speed up and lose us. When I got off the phone and successfully reported him, he pulled off into someone's driveway and turned his lights off. Okay, we think it's over. It's only about 5 minutes later, and when my boyfriend looks into his rear view mirror and sees the guy, and he looks like he's about to hit us. At this point, he floors the gas, trying to get away from this person trying to run us down. Of course, I'm screaming all sorts of obscenities, and my heart is pounding. The whole time, I look in my mirror to monitor how close he is. When we decide we can't outrun this guy, we speed off, and when we can't see him anymore, we pull into a gas station that has an outside building for restrooms. We pulled into a spot on the side of the building that is hidden from that road and completely turn off the car. I had neglected to mention that I yelled at my boyfriend not to go where we were originally going because he would have caught us and done Lord knows what for calling the police. We sit in that parking lot for about 20 minutes with my adrenaline pumping, ready for him to follow us. However, he never found us, so we went home. I did not sleep that night. It was my third time driving to Chicago with my single mother. Her brother and her sister-in-law lived in the suburb of Homestead, and during this point of my life, as a 9-year-old, my parents had just begun a nasty divorce and my dad was taking all of my money. I found this out in the car ride down there, where she was screaming and crying on the phone and trying to avoid swerving into other lanes on the highway. Not that they were many. Looking over to the gas valve, I observed that we were quickly running out of gas. My mother hung up the phone and took an exit that led pretty much to the middle of nowhere. I was pretty sure we were still in that little stretch of Ohio that needs to be passed through to get to Illinois, based on the isolation of it. The gas station was small and independently run, or at least I don't remember it looking very much like a gas station that I had seen before. Its neighbor was a McDonald's that had closed the main restaurant for the night, which now isn't in the case in 2016. There's a few other cars there. Our little Honda decided it would be a wonderful time for its battery to die. We tried pouring Coke on it to erode the gunk off it. We called AA, but they said they couldn't tow our car until morning, and there wasn't a motel in sight. We had no other choice but to alert the workers of the gas station. The man at the counter, who was Indian, said that he needed to call the owner of it because it was about to be closing time. Immediately, I knew something was wrong because gas stations don't close, right? My mother, who was really upset and a hot mess, decided that we need to call my uncle to come meet us halfway and drive us the rest of the way on our journey to Chicago. He told us that it was going to be about 2 hours for him to be able to get us, and we had to stay put. The owner comes, and as soon as I saw him, I knew there was something very, very wrong. His clothes were fine, but his eyes were hollow and his smile was almost waxy. This man was so fake, so stupidly happy to see a beautiful single mother and her frightened small child, that it was enough to make anyone alarmed, if there was anyone else there. Let me just say, I don't know what happened next. My mother and the owner of the gas station conversed near the register, probably trying to come up to a compromise, when I heard my mother say, "What do you mean we can't sleep in our car? Where else are we going to go?" His response was, "Just let me drive you someplace safe. There are some hotels a few miles up the road." My mom, in her messy, upset, and emotionally drained state, agreed. Then my mother led me through the back of the gas station, where I saw a picture of multiple young girls dressed scantily on a bulletin board in his office. That's when multiple red flags started going off in my head. The owner told us to hop in his car, and we actually did. I started to sob hysterically because I honestly knew that my mother and I are about to have an Amber Alert on us if we don't get out of this vehicle. My mom noticed my fear, and she tried to console me, but when it wasn't doing much, she told him that we were getting out. By now, the car hadn't yet put at the gas station, and the owner began to protest. "Nobody will get here until morning. You can trust me. I know the area. You two beautiful women can't be out here alone. I'll take care of you." But still, my mother forced us out of the car. Sobbing, we walked to the McDonald's, where the kind staff let us in and allowed us to stay until my uncle made it into the area. I had never been so glad to see that man in my entire life. The owner is watching from his car. Thank God I haven't seen him again. This story is from the perspective of a 27-year-old female. My encounter took place in the early spring last year. The evenings had started to get a little lighter, so providing I left work on time, I got to see the last little bit of light. Sadly, I am a nurse working at the local hospital, so leaving on time is rare. Anyway, on this particular day, there had been an emergency on the ward, and I ended up leaving about an hour and a half later than I should have. I walked out of the back entrance of the hospital, near where they bring all the deliveries, as I always do, and I noted a man sitting in the middle of the road smoking. Now, this alone didn't really cause me to be worried, as this entrance leads straight to a residential area, and I assumed he was visiting someone with a no-smoking policy in their house. It was about 10 p.m., very dark, and all I could make out was the fact that he was a man with dark hair, thanks to the streetlight a little further down the street. As I walked closer, all I could smell was the cigarette he was smoking, and I could see him attempting to sneak glances at me. This made me a little uncomfortable, but I figured I was obviously doing the same thing to him for him to notice me in the first place. So I put my big girl pants on, and kept my eyes averted, and walked past him. As I turned left onto another residential street, with a huge park on the other side of the road to me, I could smell cigarette smoke again. I glanced behind me, and saw the same guy still smoking away. He gave me a creepy smile, and put his cigarette out on the pavement. I'd like to mention that he had managed to come up behind me and be at arm's length without me even noticing. I'd like to put it down to how stealthily and fast he crept up to me, but in reality, I just wasn't paying attention. After a 13-hour shift, I was exhausted, and as a nurse, I always think back to what has happened at work. Did I do the right thing? If I had done something different, would certain patients' outcomes be different? Had I told the family of the man who had terminal cancer the right way? So, you see, I was too wrapped up in my own thoughts, walking a route I had taken 1,000 times, that combined with the fact it takes me only about 15 minutes to get home, I had managed to convince myself I was safe. Anyway, I decided to still give this guy the benefit of the doubt by slowing my pace so he could pass me on the pavement, but he just slowed down to match. This is when alarm bells really started ringing. Should I mention that my route home involves an alley that has only 2 streetlights that never work, and is rather narrow, allowing only one person to walk down it at any one moment. It runs along the back of more residential streets, and mine is the second one you can come to. I kept glancing behind me, and he was still walking close to me and smiling. I sped up my pace, and so did he. I slowed down again, and he does exactly the same thing. Now I am freaking the fuck out. I was getting closer to the alley that I always walk down, and I needed to decide fast if I was going to risk going that way, or should I carry down this road, which is pretty long, to a fairly main road at the end. When I say on main road, it's just a road that leads to the town center that has a few shops along it that are closed by this time at night, and have the one odd car driving at this time. While I was trying to decide what way to go, I know, only idiots take the alley when they think they are being followed. I felt him touch my arm, and try to pull me around to face him. By now, I was only a few steps away from the alley, and so I yanked my arm from his grip and ran like a bat out of hell down this alley. The first street light, that is at the top of the first road, wasn't working, and I knew what you were thinking. I should have run down that road and knocked on someone's door for help, but all I could think about is getting home and being able to put a locked door between me and this guy. I could hear him running after me, his feet hitting the ground, and his breathing behind me. Now, like I always said, I walk this way, and the left side has big bushes, trees and weeds, etc., that get so overgrown they start taking over the walkway. I knew one of those tree branches had grown over, and while I was short enough to run under it without an incident, I was praying he wasn't. He was starting to gain on me, and I knew I was tired and slowing. People always talk about how, in these kinds of situations, they always get a huge adrenaline run and can run for ages and get out of harm's way. Not if I'm just missing that, or if I was just too tired to keep going for long. I'm still going and feel the tree branch brush the top of my head, and about 5 seconds later, I hear it smack into him, and he starts shouting and swearing. I am not all far from where the alley meets the top of the road. Thankfully, the light is working here so I can see clearly. I can hear his footfalls getting closer as I run down my road. I live about halfway down, and as I reach my house, I realize I can't hear him anymore, so naturally, I do another stupid thing. I slow down and turn around. He was standing under the streetlight with the same creepy smile on his face, and waves. That undid me completely. I am crying like a baby by now, and trying to catch my breath as I fight with the lock on my door, but eventually get into the house and lock up again. I close all the curtains downstairs and take the knife from my kitchen upstairs with me and the dogs. Thankfully, nothing else happened. He didn't make a move to follow me when I turned to look at him, but I didn't want to be unprepared in case he changed his mind. I'd also like to add I live in the middle of a row of terraced houses that all look the same, so the chances of him finding my house again would be very unlikely. I have no idea what he was going to do to me. If anything, he could have just gotten a kick out of me freaking the fuck out. I never reported it to the police, but a few weeks later, I read in our local paper about a man who tried to attack another woman 4 streets away from me. They caught the guy, but I never knew if it was the same person. If it was, then I am truly sorry for not going to the police, as I could have stopped that happening to her.